Hello, my name is Mai, and I'm going to be doing a little bit of show and tell today. I am part of this um, project that I'm really excited about. It's called Hidden Heritages, San Jose's Vietnamese Legacy, and it's a partnership between the San Jose Museum of Art, the City of San Jose's Office of Cultural Affairs, and Chopsticks Alley. And I'll be working with multiple artists in various disciplines. We have a photographer, a poet, and a composer, and we're going to be working on this project that celebrates the contributions of the Vietnamese American community in San Jose, which is one of the nation's most diverse cities and also my hometown. So for our project, it will be culminating at San Jose City Hall, and the exhibit will be curated by Robin Treen. We're going to be going out to the community and gathering stories and artifacts and photographs and just connecting with community members. And these may inspire artworks that will be displayed in the exhibit. Some of the objects might be displayed in the exhibit. And so today I thought I would share how historical and personal objects and different materials find their way into my artwork. These objects hold stories within themselves. And as culture bearers, there's definitely a responsibility to document that history in whichever manner our gifts offer. So I feel like my work is essentially co-creating with history. So me as living history, co-creating with inherited history. And so I find so much joy in kind of excavating this history and um, examining it and then retelling the stories that we've inherited, because these personal stories have been given to us and passed down to us by people who are so gracious as to share such personal stories with us. So I really value that, and so we want to honor that. And so for our next workshop, we're encouraging family members to sit down together, gather objects, and just converse, and pass on, for the sake of passing on the family history and the history of a portion of a whole, the Vietnamese American experience. So yeah, really excited about that. So I wanted to take some time to share in the ways that these objects have helped unearth family stories and how family stories have inspired artwork. So they really work hand in hand and they inform each other. Yeah, all right, so let's begin. So the first thing I want to share, I'm going to start with Bethany, one of the people who shared with me so much information was my my grandmother, my mom's mom. And here she is. So she's in the middle there. This is Bahung, Batam, Babao, and Batian is right there. And Batian is the oldest of 12 children. So when she passed away, she left all these photos and objects that I just collected from her apartment, which inspired a lot of artwork. One of the things that I inherited was this prayer book of hers, and it's like totally falling apart. She was very devout Catholic, as was the rest of her family. Yeah, the pages are just falling apart, and you could see how she taped it. This is her doing here, like Scotch tape. So when I inherited this, I was so excited about it, and I really wanted to make some art out of it, to help, just share family history. So I made these. So here's a couple of pieces from the family tree. My first time experimenting with resin, which is like really tough to use, but really cool because it allows for the embedding of all different materials. So you can see here, there's like hand stitching, there's images that are printed on joss paper, there's a little bit of collage and painting. Yeah, so this is the last page of the prayer book. There's Grandma with Jesus. She was 10 years old in this photo, and she's holding this little purse, and she's actually, it's a family photo, but I kind of singled her out because she was religious, but very, very spiritual, and just such an inspirational force in my life. Just her, how faithful she was and how much she loved people, and totally, it was beyond religiosity with her, I think. She just kind of lived it. So there's a little bird there. Yeah. So I actually used I tore out the pages of the prayer book and made these. I ended up with 63 of them. And one of the common questions I get from people is, "You didn't use the real pages, did you?" Yeah, I did, because it's the object itself that holds the history. You know, it's not a print of the object, and I want that history to live in the work. So for me, it's important to include it, although it is really hard to tear out pages. It gets easier because I ended up with so many, so it got easier. But yeah, like cutting up objects, and it's in the beginning, it's difficult, but you know, it ends up always being worth it. So yeah, no regrets. So the interesting about these is, when I would start working on it, I ended up with 63, as I said, and like for the first 10, they were just experimental, which most of my work starts off experimental and then just becomes something, you know, I would say 99.9% of the time, it just starts off trying to figure something out. If not 100% of the time, maybe I'm giving myself too much credit. But when my family members would see themselves in it, they'd start telling these stories. And then those stories would inspire more work. And then that work would inspire more stories. So that's why I ended up making so many, because I was like, ooh, this is a good way. This is a good way to like learn more about roots. It's all about the roots. So, okay, so that's those. So Bethien, actually, she was, again, here's her photo. I just want to share. So Bethien right there. She actually studied abroad in Belgium, and she studied social work, and graduated in the 40s with a master's in social work, came to America, settled in Chicago, and so she was here like fully in her career. And so when the first wave of the Vietnamese refugees came, she was like already established to help her people, which is pretty amazing. And as a woman during that time. And so I learned that through the art, actually. Here's, it's all gonna lead together. That's the thing about like the art process, like one informs the other, and then it kind of jumps back and forth, and it's just all this web of interconnected stories. So this is a photo of my mom's paternal grandfather and her paternal grandmother. And this is his funeral here. And I'm showing this photo because this is a traditional, this is a Vietnamese tradition to wear mourning bands during funerals. So the people who are related to the departed will wear these mourning bands. So these white are worn by immediate family members, and then there's also yellow that are yellow bands, which I'll show you here because I save everything. I have to. There's so much in these. So here's Bethien. So Batien's morning band here that I wore. So it would be, it's like, this is my great grandmother's morning band that my mom wore during her funeral, and they're all made of like different cotton. And I remember my auntie Becca, actually, she'd sit down. I remember her cutting these strips of headbands for the family. This is my cousin B. B. I wore this for her funeral. Lots of funerals. This I wore during Bangwai's funeral. This is Lang's funeral, so her older brother. And this is fabric that was actually, I don't know where the original, but this is the fabric that the grandchildren wore during Mako's funeral, my great grandmother. So these morning bands became part of this work here. So sorry about the glare. It's hard to tell, but it's kind of a 3D piece. I worked on multiple layers, and it's called Arrival. So this speaks on death and life. So these tents here were made out of that kind of thing. Those, the morning band that I wore during Bako, my great grandmother's funeral. So I cut them out as little tents. These are the San Diego Hills. This is Camp Pendleton here, which was where one of the 4 refugee camps were at in the United States in '75 when the refugees, the Vietnamese refugees arrived. So here's an avocado seed, and it's about new beginnings and new generation watching this grow. So representing death and new life. So that's how, yeah, it's all tied together. And yeah, these morning bands, this was interesting too, because I felt like after I finished, I thought, ooh, I should have used Batien's morning bands, because she was, she and her mother, sorry, they were both in Chicago together. Oh, so that works out. Yeah, lots of discoveries made long after the work has already been completed. So yeah, my great grandmother and her lived in Chicago, and they both worked with the refugees, with the Vietnamese refugees when they came. So yeah, so there's another piece that was inspired by objects and family history. So, oh, this is a really special one. This is also something I inherited from her. This was in her drawer. It's her calendar. 1975. Like his calendar. A little pocket calendar. I feel like I'm the archivist's worst nightmare in the way that I store this stuff. I keep them in a shoebox. I try to be as good as I can, but tháng 4 ngày 30. So April 30th. And she's got notes there, and I cannot read her writing. So yeah, there's April 30th right there. Ngày 30 tháng 4. April 30th is the day that Saigon fell. And it's actually known as Ngày mất nước, is the day we lost our country. Or that's how we know it. And yeah, like losing one's country. It's, yeah, I don't even understand. So I try to understand, like through the work. I want to understand, and I depend on the elders and these stories to try to come close to understanding, or at least try to make sense of it. And the art helps me do that. So this is a really special piece for objects. Here's some more photos. These are photos of my family in Ba Lat, Vietnam. Look at them. These edges are so beautiful. You can see those edges. This is my bông ngoại right here. And there they are, like in the farm. So here's like the back. There's like some writing. Really hard to read this writing. I'm gonna ask for it to be translated because my Vietnamese isn't great. Hành Yang Bắp Su. So corn. So that's this is Bác Hành here, and I guess he's got corn. House Sữa Yang. So my auntie, my oldest auntie, is about to carry this heavy basket, and then Thumb, who's my grandmother's youngest sibling, đang lên or leo. I don't know what that means. I tried to Google search it and couldn't find anything. So here are more family photos here. This is some, yeah, these we found in her possession too. This is, here's old Vietnamese money. This is so exciting. Here is, look how beautiful this money is. The water buffalo here, 100 đồng, 100 đồng. Here's 50 đồng. She had an envelope with it. 20 đồng. Oh, you know what? There's this stuff that goes on during in the work. I want to know who that is. So you could see the portrait in the money, which I always thought this money that had this was so cool. I don't know who that is either. I wonder if this has any, oh, yep. Here's the same portrait. And yeah, there she is again. Yeah, and the elephants. How beautiful this money is. Oh, and this one is from Cambodia. So this is from Cambodia, Cambodian money. Not sure where they got that. And this is really cool. This is from Zambia. It's 50 kwacha. This Zambian bill here, my grandmother's younger brother, An, actually, he studied abroad in Africa, studied agriculture in Africa, and I think some of his children were born there. So African Vietnamese, or Vietnamese African, pretty cool. So just wanted to share more objects. Got a lot going on here. Okay. So, all right. So Benoit was, again, she was one of the people who really shared with me so much of the family history. And I have like a few photos of her here. This is her at 30 years old. It's around 1957. You could see the silver emulsion. How beautiful is that? Look at that silver. And she passed away in 2014, and here's her program. This was her favorite photo of herself, so I just wanted to show that. She loved that photo of herself. She asked somebody to change, I think it was my uncle who changed the background so there's music notes, because she loved classical music. She's so deep, so fancy. So that's Bông Ngoại, and here is her Vietnam ID and also my mom's Vietnam ID. So I remade these IDs. I took photos of them and then I just kind of like cut them out. And then their fingerprints and their signatures. So these inspired some work that I did as part of the Mẹ ơi series. Mẹ ơi means it's a call, a hearkening to mother. So I ended up with 36 of these. It was actually when I was going through an artist, like a lull, and decided to just kind of experiment again. Starts with experimentation. Don't be afraid to experiment. So this is like there is the back of their IDs, and there's a stamp from Vietnam that I found on an envelope from one of the letters that she had in her collection. And then I kind of layered my own fingerprints. So on the ID, it says ngón tay cái, ngón tay mặt. So left thumbprints, right thumbprints. And so these are my own thumbprints, and I just kind of layered them on top. So like, yeah, like that. Yeah, haven't shown these yet, but it's a series that I'm really excited about. And these works really speak on migration and immigration. So yeah, they'll find their place. Sometimes the work doesn't leave the studio, and I'm totally fine with that. I need them to exist, you know? So here, this is the real photo. These are my great-grandmother's, they look like passport photos, right? And she has multiple of these. So I decided to draw her. So this is the first thing I did when I was going through that lull. I decided to go back to basics and draw. So this is just graphite. Yeah, going back to basics. And then it just kind of launched me into this whole phase where I was just like making small works of art and ended up with so many of them. And it brought me right out of that block. So yeah, photos. There's so much in a photo, and photos just capture time. That's what I appreciate about them. Like, it documents the time, that the moment, which is pretty amazing that we even have technology to do that. So I'll put this aside. Okay, so I also left a bunch of letters. I have a box. I have a box full of her letters. See all that? I walked into her room and she was tearing up all these letters. You can see that they're totally shredded. She was tearing them all up because she said they were too personal, and I begged her to keep them. Look at this rice paper. I promised her I would not read them scraps if she let me keep them, and she agreed. And then I came across this one that the word caught my eye: refugee services, migration, refugee services, Massachusetts Avenue, Washington, D.C. This was one of the pieces that she tore up. And I promised her I wouldn't read any, but it really caught my eye. So I've just been leaving it there, and that's it. So this is a collection that she actually saved for me. She said these were, she said, "Mấy thơ này vui đi," which means these are really fun. Like, these are like lighthearted letters. So I haven't read these yet. And I'm just waiting on them right now. I'm just being patient. But yeah, so these letters actually inspired me thinking about unread letters and secrets and personal things we don't want to share with people. She made this silk bag, not sure what she kept in it, but I keep the cocoons in it. And then all of these, she gave me these rice sacks too. She had them in her fabric bin. Look how old these are. They don't even really make fabric, I mean cotton rice bags anymore. And I have all of these remnants. Tried to work some into projects, didn't work out. And that's okay, because we're just experimenting. So here's another rice bag. I love this one. It's like super soft. But these are silkworm cocoons. So going back, I took her letters and I thought of secrets and like keeping secrets and these very sacred texts and personal texts. And I rolled them into little scrolls. These scrolls inspired like a whole installation called That We Should Be Heirs and Fear Not. Actually, it's on my website. But I rolled her fragments of letter into these little scrolls. And these cocoons I got from an artist that I showed with in the Salt Stained exhibit. Duan Chen, shout out Duan Chen. He works with these cocoons, and he uses traditional Vietnamese net weaving to create these sculptures, these like suspending sculptures, and he incorporates these. And he had like I think he said 30,000 of them shipped to the States and had extra. And he was so gracious as to give me a bag full of them. And so I thought they were perfect. They came like, well, I stitched that little cross on. So that little red cross has been showing up a lot in my work to represent recovery, faith, crosshairs for, and speaking on the immigration crisis and those who have been targeted. But I thought they were perfect little vaults for these scrolls, and they fit perfectly. Did not plan that. Yeah, that's what they look like. And I don't know what they will be yet, but so I have 40 something of them. If you can see. There we go. Yeah, I have like 40 something of them. And just experimenting with different things. Like here's one that's hanging on a wooden disc, just kind of suspended. Yeah, just trying to figure it out. So there's so many different iterations of what the work goes through before it decides, or I decide, whatever comes first. It doesn't matter to me. But yeah, well, actually, it's kind of fun when the work decides for itself. I know it sounds romantic, but it's totally true. Sometimes art works that way. The artists know. Yeah. So the letters inspired that. Oh, and the silkworm cocoons, those came from Vietnam. I don't know if I had mentioned that, but yeah. So tying in this incubator coming from Vietnam and new beginnings and new life. So it all kind of is this overarching theme here. So yeah, thank you for sticking with me. Hope this is like enjoyable for you. Just like a few more groups of things to go. So when my grandfather, when his family first arrived, my family first arrived in America, they settled at Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, which was another one of the refugee camps. So there were 4 refugee camps in America. It was Camp Pendleton, Fort Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, or Camp Pendleton, San Diego, Fort Indiantown Gap, Pennsylvania, Fort Chaffee, Arkansas, and I'm not sure one in Texas. I'm not sure the name of it. I should know that though. So my family came through Fort Indiantown Gap and settled in Pennsylvania. And my grandfather actually, here's a photo of him sitting at his typewriter, this is not the real photo, sitting at his typewriter at the Spirit of Vietnam. So in November of 1976, the Spirit of Vietnam was a charitable organization that was born from a group of people who wanted to provide essential services, and wanted to offer these services to the Vietnamese refugees in the central region of Pennsylvania. It was founded in 1976, and then in 1978, because the Southeast Asian population was growing, they needed to respond to the needs. So the Spirit of Vietnam expanded to become the Indo-Chinese Service Center. So this is my grandfather here, and he was an English teacher in Vietnam. And so when he arrived, he linked up with this group, and the Spirit of Vietnam was actually a radio show, and his job was to translate the news in English to Vietnamese, and then they would broadcast the news through their media channel, which was like in my notes, WMSP 94.9. And so they would broadcast the news to the Vietnamese population, who, many did not speak English, so as to inform them what was happening on the home front in Vietnam and happening here in the new home front in the United States, like if there was different opportunities or different ways to seek help, this organization would offer services to them. And so my mom and actually her older sister, they were paid $1.25 to broadcast this news. So they were newscasters for this radio show, Spirit of Vietnam. And I love this photo so much. And there he is on his typewriter. Oh no, actually, he's next to a typewriter. He's got a pencil in his hand, jotting down some notes. Oh my. So yeah, I wanted to share that. So so here, like with all the work, we've kind of moved into, and objects, we've kind of moved into, arrival. And this is a dictionary that is from Dauphin County. There's a little stamp here. Central Dauphin Joint Schools College Dictionary. This is the dictionary that my family members shared. So I have two of my uncles and one of my aunties, maybe more, but I think it was just the three of them, who graduated from Penn State. And they shared this dictionary. They shared an apartment together as they were finishing college. And so we still have this, and I use it actually. And look how old it is. It's just like so loved and worn. And so this is like making a new life in America. Really beautiful. So objects. Okay, the last thing I want to share is about, I graduated from San Jose State, met my husband at San Jose State, and he's a Vietnamese Cambodian American. And it's amazing because he was born in Vietnam, and I've been able to glean from his family history as well. So there's so much to do. But he tells, I never had a chance to meet his father, but I love him and I know him through Ken, and just through all the stories that he's told me about his loving, beautiful father, who was a high-ranking official in the South Vietnamese Army and was imprisoned for 5 years in the re-education camp, internment camp, there's different names for it, but he was tortured because he fought for the South Vietnamese army. So we have, look at those Vietnamese stamps. We have the original photo that was taken of him. While he was in prison. There's some writing on it. And here's the original paperwork that I had since 2001, and it took me like 17 years to actually make something of it because I had to just process it. Here he is with his first grandchild in the United States. Such a loving man. I just feel like I know him. Here's his resident alien card. Again, these are copies. I just have copies of them, and I just made these cards, and I'm gonna keep them in my wallet, really, so that I always have them with me. There's his little thumbprint. Yeah, there's his benefits card. We needed help when we first came here to start a new life. And so that photo inspired, this is a book I just published with Shan Ray, a poet whom I admired deeply. Thank you to Shan and his family for sharing their stories too. So this inspired this work of art here. This was actually also displayed in the Salt Stained exhibit at Art Object Gallery in Japantown. It's 4 by 5 feet. And so I enlarged it. And what I did was I was thinking about growth that comes from death and hardship. Growth that we often have a hard time remembering will come, but eventually it comes if we just stand fast. Yes, stand fast, y'all. And so there's real leaves, and those, it's hard to see in the photo, but if you could see in here, that's made of copies of those release papers from the re-education camp that I just showed you. I took photocopies of them and created this wound out of them. And these marks here, there's 17 of these war wounds on the work because he was shot 17 times during the war and survived and arrived in America with his family, survivor. And I actually took my tears, fitting, because I'm feeling them well up right now. I took my tears because this was hanging in the studio for a long time before I could even touch it. And I took my tears and rubbed them on his eyes, and I would just cry for him in the studio. And I took them and actually, I actually created these war wounds based on the bear just came out of hibernation. I created the war wounds with Vietnamese rainwater, which Yvonne Jun gave me. Thank you, Yvonne, when she was in Vietnam. So this is Vietnamese rainwater. I've been really being very conservative with this because I'm like savoring every drop. And so along with my tears and that rainwater, I rubbed into the paper to create these war wounds. So yeah, 15, 16 years in the making. So that's something too, is sometimes it takes a long time to tell or retell these stories because we're processing them. And yeah, so yeah, we appreciate everyone who has trusted us with their stories and has been willing to share them with me, with us. And here's the last thing that I want to share too. This is raw cotton. And this cotton was plucked from the farms in which my husband and his father and their family toiled on when they first arrived to America. His father worked in oil fields. I mean, he was a mayor of Buccleuch for 2 terms and then came to America and um, worked in the oil fields, worked in the bell pepper fields, worked in orange orchards and carrot fields and whatever was in season, migrant worker. And yeah, with many other migrant families, and they need families together, you know. They were a family on the fields. So this cotton was plucked from one of those fields, and I've actually incorporated this in my work as well. And it's interesting, just like thinking about the history that comes from cotton. Um, you know, like what the Black community has been through, just toiling in the cotton fields. And when we drove by that farm, we were actually driving back down the 152, like down the 5, and we drove past this field. I think it was actually the 99. It was the 99, and he had pointed out these. He's like, we worked on these fields, and I asked him to pull over, and the cotton had already been harvested. So we pull over on the side of the road, and I'm in shorts because it was like during the summer, and there's still some cotton that's left over that bloomed late. So I climbed. I walked into the field to pick this cotton. And it was like a brief, maybe 5 minutes going in there, snapping the cotton off and walking out, and my legs were completely cut up. And it was just like 5 minutes in the field. And I was just really thinking about what our people have had to go through, you know, what immigrants go through in these fields and work so hard to take care of their families. And it just makes me really grateful that we have people who are willing to do that for their future generations to give us a good life. And I'm just really grateful for it. So yeah, this is the last object where we're ending with flowers pretty much. These are blossoms. Yeah, they're so beautiful and so soft. And then, you know, another idea that I've had, I actually did it, but then the cotton is so tough. I have such respect for farmers. But I sowed some of these seeds and they grew and then they died like within a week. It was like constant care. So I'm going to try it again. But yeah, so thank you for being here for this show and tell. I know it was a little lengthy, but there's just so much to share. Yeah, we invite you to sit with us and share your stories and sit with each other and family members and talk through the history and learn and relearn and remember and retell. And if you have any objects that you would like to share or photos, yeah, we invite you to do so. And I'm sure there'll be links somewhere under this video or above this video where you could share. But we just want to thank you. And on behalf of Hidden Heritages, yeah, I thank you. All right, bye.